Because this is a discussion that has two compelling arguments. So, the former Chief Justice contends that the process that has been carried out so far is to remove her as Chief Justice. No process has been carried out to remove her as a Supreme Court judge. Therefore, the warrant to remove her as both is not lawful. She believes that she remains a Supreme Court judge. Kofi, I think the simple question is, if you have been found to have engaged in stated misbehavior, how can you remain a Supreme Court judge?
Well, good morning again. Point is this. So let's assume you are one of the is it journalists or anchors of Super Morning Show, and then you are appointed to be the head of the team. All right, and for some reason you are removed as the head of the team. Does that mean you are removed from being an anchor or a journalist on the Super Morning Show? I am saying this because on radio we can't go through all the things and we need to simplify them. The issue is this. There are justices of the Supreme Court. In our law, they are appointed in a particular way. Then there is the Chief Justice, who is one of the justices. In our law, she is appointed differently, goes to vetting differently. There is in our law a process for removing justices of the Supreme Court. That is different from the process of removing the Supreme Court justice. I am saying this simply because even in our law, there is the admission that there is a difference in those two positions. Now, what we all must understand is that as long as there is room and the process have not been exhausted for a matter that is in contention to be declared or properly sorted out or explained, we should use that option. What CJ Tokono is doing is useful for all of us. You hear people talk about, oh, it's not good. She's disgracing herself. Why is she seeking to come back? Honestly, the rest of us are better beneficiaries of this than CJ Tokono. Just like we keep quoting the Ejetin case. When some of these things are brought to the Supreme Court, it gives opportunity to express them better, explain them better, give more elucidation on them. So what we must note at the beginning is this. She does have the right to bring that matter. Because until there is a judicial pronouncement on the matter, it is not final. And two, there is persuasive argument in law that what she says may be true. To the extent that there has not been any variation on it, all of us should hold our horses and not sound as if we know how this is going to go. At least let the process be gone through and let there be a clear declaration. Then in future, we don't have any of these problems. So for me, I'm not saying it is right or it's not, it is good or it is not. I'm simply saying it is useful to clarify that area because it is not clear. There is a difference in the Supreme Court justice and the Chief Justice. And the things that the Supreme Court justice does, which is mostly being a judge, are different from what the Supreme Court Chief Justice does, which include administrative work. And the other justices don't do as much as he does. So there is persuasive argument that if you say I cannot be head of the team, one of the justices becoming a Chief Justice can no longer be a Chief Justice and perform those administrative duties. And I have earned my place already as a Supreme Court Justice. Then if you use the bullet that removes a Chief Justice, it cannot kill those two birds. But there is also an argument to the contrary, which I believe my good friend and colleague will canvass here. What we need to appreciate is that it is a proper case to come before the court and let the court handle it, so we will all be better for it.
Kofi, blessed here. I just wanted to point you to Article 128 of the Constitution, which talks about composition and the mode of exercise of judicial power. you look at 1284, and it reads that a person shall not be qualified for appointment as Justice of the Supreme Court unless he, and we can use that to replace she, is of high moral character and proven integrity, if not less than 15 years of standing as a lawyer. Does that not tie, ethics and standards to who qualifies to still remain on the bench of this country?
Well, you're right. But that's the point. She qualified to become a justice of the Supreme Court, which means she passed all of that. Then when you become a justice of the Supreme Court, you are picked from the team to become the Chief Justice. Okay? Now, when you are removed as Chief Justice, it does not mean that the qualification that brought you to being a justice of the Supreme Court is all of a sudden removed. Because what moves you from the justice of the Supreme Court to the Chief Justice is different.
Is stated misbehavior not a proven case of breaching high moral standards or character as stipulated in 128 of the Constitution?
That's not the issue. The point I'm making is that...
Why is that not the issue, though?
Well, that's not the issue because he passed all those things to become a justice of the Supreme Court. Okay? And now she's moved as a primus inter pares to become the Chief Justice. She's all of that plus. If she is dropped from the position, like I said earlier, if you are made the head because they think you have some leadership, special leadership qualities, and therefore you're made the head of the team at the, what is your program called? Morning show. Okay. And for some reason, you are removed because you didn't do that job well. I think there's an argument that you should be returned to your original position. There is this thing in HR called being promoted to your point of ineptitude. Some people are good at a point. When you elevate them, they may not be that good at that point. So I'm simply saying, the processes have not been exhausted. There is an argument to be made. Whether it will go in her favor or not in her favor, it is useful for the rest of us that this matter be put to rest once and for all. What I say, or what my colleague Martin will say, is not the law. These are our views. It is properly before the Supreme Court. Let them take a look at it and let them make a decision on this matter. And then we'll all the advice going forward. But I do think that she does have a case. Because in future, if you become a justice of the Supreme Court, you may be very suited to become the Chief Justice. But if you look at what is going on now, and you are giving the Chief Justice, which can help the whole country, you will refuse. Simply because anything, including making a mistake on accounting, can lead to your removal of the Chief Justice, and then you also get removed as a Justice of the Supreme Court. Very good people will refuse to take that position simply because it puts them in bigger jeopardy than the benefits that they gain from being in that position. So I'm simply saying there is room to look at this and let the justices of the Supreme Court deal with it. Right. In a constitutional republic, nothing is final until there's a final judicial pronouncement on it or the statute of limitations passed. So to the extent that she has not exhausted all these, I think it is proper to bring this matter. Right. People are giving her advice and saying it is not good, you are disgracing yourself, you should stop fighting. All of those things are not things are the law.
Okay.
She is good enough to advise herself, and she has advised herself. I am happy that she's doing it, and I think I'm waiting for the outcome.
All right. Now,